Hey everybody, how's it going? How you guys doing? Today is our fan Q&A session. This is where you guys get to ask us questions. Now, the main question obviously on this particular video is always a question from a fan that has sent it into us. So this is not our views necessarily. We just answer the questions. And today's main headline is, do you think that Rassie or Bavuma would get dropped if they don't have good performances in this particular series? Now, this was sent in on Instagram. It was one of our questions on Instagram. And it's one that we need to answer and we will answer on the show. It was from Kastub H. Well, yes, it's KAUSTUBH _1251. So thank you for the question. And yeah, we will be chatting about that today on the show and answer your questions in the live chat. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Let's get straight into today's video. Don't forget to obviously subscribe to this channel, click that notification bell for all future videos. And also don't forget to subscribe to Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, directly in your inbox every month. So go into the link in the description to get that. Smash the like button, please. Comment in the live chat, please. We answer all your questions. You don't, not only the ones that are from the super chat, but we can't guarantee that we'll get to all of your questions. So please get involved with the super chat if you really, really burningly want to ask us a question. And then we have to answer it, no matter if it's at the end of the show or whether it is in the middle of the show, we have to answer it immediately. So thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning into this one. Let's get straight into it. Hey everyone, welcome to Cricket Fanatics magazine. This is your daily show, your fan Q&A session. I'm your host Khalid, and I'm joined by Aditya as well. Today we're going to be answering your questions. So we're going to leave the main heading closer towards the end. Let's start with the one that has been given in the live chat immediately. Let's go straight to your questions because you guys have been coming in here and obviously you've been contributing every single day. So I have to say thank you to all of you that have been supporting us consistently every single day. You've been on our live streams with us. Sometimes we don't have a lot of numbers, but sometimes we have great numbers. So thank you for the ones that stick it through and continuously support us every single day. So first question. I've been up asking, how can you South Africa improve their cricket like they used to play in the 2000s? I think the only way South Africa can improve themselves is by improving the talent pool in the country. So the more people that play cricket at a competitive level, the better we will be as a country, the better our system will be, the stronger our system will be, the more top players we will be producing. So by doing that, I feel that our school system needs to be sorted out. We need to cater to the majority of the country, like we spoke about last night. We need to get more people in this country to play. And that means getting the cricket to the masses. And in South Africa's case, the masses are particularly people of color in the country. So we need to get more people of color to play the sport. Clearly, by the national team we're seeing currently and what we're seeing domestically, it's not necessarily representative of the dynamics in the country. So by creating more opportunities for people to play the sport in this country, the more opportunities we'll be able to have to see better talent, and that way we will be produce better cricketers and so forth and so forth. Aditya, this does lean into his next question, but let's just first answer this part and then go to his next question.
Look, I wouldn't compare the 2000s with the performances of the current team because I think cricket has changed. The way cricket has been played over the last decade or so with T20 cricket and the acceleration and the pace of one day and test cricket has also changed. So I think I wouldn't make that comparison, but ultimately we all want South African cricket to do well. And for that to happen, as you said, you know, South Africa needs to make better use of its talent pool and ensure that more people, particularly of color, have access to cricket. um, that's the only way. And then I think going into professional cricket, it's important for everyone to benefit from the robust structures in place, so that by the time they get to SAA teams or South African national team, they're ready to take on international cricket.
Mhm. And this leans into the next question: why South Africa is not considered as favorites right now? It's a very simple question from my part, because I think that we have to look at it holistically and see what has happened since we were number one in the world. There's a lot of changes that has happened in the team dynamic. There's been changes in coaches. There's been changes in top class players. There's been changes in the boardroom at Cricket South Africa. A lot has changed with regards to that. There's been changes in our domestic structure. There's no longer semi-pro cricket. So the franchise cricket has been dropped, and now we have Division A and Division B with relegation, meaning that a lot of players lost their contracts and are not playing cricket anymore. Club cricket has weakened because of that as well. There's a lot of aspects that we can talk about that has changed in South African cricket, particularly losing legends of the game that have served South Africa for nearly 10 to 15 years. So majority of South Africa's core group of players that you guys remember have played since the 90s and right through until the early 2000s, some middle, some late 2000s. So there's a lot of changes when you lose guys like Sean Pollock, Mackay Ntini, Graham Smith, Jacques Callis, Herschel Gibbs, um, Dale Steyn, Vernon Philander, there's so many, Faf du Plessis, AB de Villiers. There are so many players that we've lost that were true world-class players that we now have to find a way to replace. And South Africa kind of still in that transitional phase, because it's not like we just lost one legend at a time. It was kind of a whole bunch of them at the time, in very important, crucial moments in South African cricket and in our development. What I've always thought, and I've always been someone that you should learn from your mistakes. I don't feel that we put enough younger players in the system early enough back then when those legends were still available. And I think we need to learn from our mistakes and do that right now. Whether they play or not is irrelevant to me. I feel maybe they can have a game or so, and yes, they can play with this bunch of players, but they need to earmark the next talent and let them be within the setup so they can learn from the people that are in the middle. Because there's no experience like test experience. There's no experience like ODI international experience. There's no experience like having IPL cricketers coming there and teaching you how to play the T20 game. So I really think that we need to invest in our youngsters and allow them to come into the system a lot earlier so that we can prevent this massive exodus that we have. And then also Cole Plax left, and there was a whole lot of things around that too. So there's been a lot of reasons why South African cricket isn't as strong as it used to be. But we're on the rise again. If you look at the young talent, and I don't want to talk before we see, but I think the World Cup will be a reflection of what we have to offer next in line. What are our youngsters doing compared to the rest of the world is going to be a very good indication of where we are in 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 cricket. Whether we come to a semi-final or final, I think that is a success for South Africa with the under 19 team. If they can just hit the semi-finals and then up to there, they just do their best cricket from there on. Either win it or if they come, you can't obviously predict if you're going to win a final or not. But do as best as they can. We will be able to at least look at it, analyze it, and speak about what our talent is like. So that's my reasons for why we are not favorites anymore. I think every team goes through that, and I think every team will have to go through that. But it's a lot harder for South Africa if you don't have any backups in place. Aditya?
Uh, to be honest, I think my view is that sometimes things may not look as good as they are, but they're also not as bad as they are. For all the turmoil going on in South African cricket, the plenty of people who are optimistic about South Africa's chances against India, and I think who was it Dan Cricket, our friend, said that South Africa is going to beat India 3-0. Let's see how far that prediction goes, but um, I don't think it's all doom and gloom, because we must also note that there's now a new structure in place.
Mm.
There's a new domestic structure in place, and that's going to take time to unearth a few players. But we're already seeing how well Tony D'Orsi has done. We've been on this channel, we've been talking him up to be a future Proteas player. And similarly, for all the doom and gloom that came with the SJN, the process took place. You know, I think that's a positive in itself, and we'll see how the reforms are implemented. But I don't think we need to be as cynical uh, in our views of South African cricket, because we know that the talent is still there, the structures have been put in place, and soon enough, with performances, the glory will come in, the money will come in. So in
Hmm.
time, things will change.
Yeah.
Um, but as you said, every team goes through a certain phase. Um, like right now, England is basically resting on the glories of its white ball teams. The test team has been in shambles for a long time. So uh, that's okay. You know, South Africa will come through.
Hmm. Next one, you can start off with this one, Namalicha. Why are we always criticizing Rassie? Someone tell me when serious where Rassie has failed, and no one. Someone tell me seriously where Rassie wasn't one of our top scorers. This guy gets so much unwanted hate. So let's move on to the top question, and I think that is related to this because
Yeah.
do you think that Rassie and Bavuma the actual question was, do you think SA will drop for Van der Dussen and Bavuma if they failed in this series? So they're obviously talking about the India series.
Yeah. Look, I think I've been one of Rassie's most ardent supporters on this channel and otherwise. I think he's a phenomenal player in all formats of the game. And if we're talking about Test cricket, his knock of, I think, 75 odd was a series defining knock against the West Indies. And obviously uh, we can't state enough of Rassie's impact in the white ball arena. He's just phenomenal. I think in all three formats of the game, Rassie has to be one of the first names on the sheet, if not the first. So, I, again, I don't know why so much pressure on Rassie. There shouldn't be. He's one of South Africa's most reliable players, and um, he's he's good enough to come up against India and deliver some
Mhm.
breakthrough performances.
Now, before I give my answer, I just want to reiterate that this was not a question that we are asking you guys, and this is not a question we're putting out there. This was a question sent in to us by Kostup. He's on on Instagram. So we just answering the question as the main headline because it's the one that was sent in. If you guys send in questions, we will put it up as our question. We'll take the best one or the first one. Normally, we take the first one and we put it up as our question for the day. So, to my answer, I don't, I don't think that Rashi should be in the conversation when we're talking about getting people dropped. I think Rassi, since he came into the international team, has been a soldier for South Africa. I think he's been the one consistency that we have in this team that we can rely on. I feel that right now in this period while we're trying to find the next future stars to come into this test arena, I think Rassi needs to be the core of that and the middle of that and they build around him because whenever we've been in trouble, Rassi's really come to the party as well. Similarly to Bavuma in certain matches, but I feel that Bavuma maybe should not have been given the vice captaincy for this particular case because I feel his form doesn't deserve him to get the vice captaincy. I think that in the test arena, he really needs to up his game. And I think he would admit that himself that he needs to convert those 50s into more hundreds. And I think this India test series is really going to put a lot of pressure on him. If he doesn't score runs here and he doesn't minimum score a couple of 50s in this particular series, I think the critics are going to come for him hard. And I think he will be disappointed with that. It's also about match situation, guys. If it's not available for him to be able to get a century and convert one of those 50s into a century, then we also need to take that into account. So we will analyze the games and criticize when it's needed to be when we need to be critical. I do feel that I criticize when it's needed. I've criticized Bavuma in the past, and you guys tend to forget that I do so. You gloss over the times that I criticize him and only see the times when I praise him. So I think you need to look at it neutrally as every single player on specific games, in specific matches, and in specific situations. You can't just rule someone out before they even had an opportunity to prove you wrong. So personally, I don't think that they will drop them, because I feel even if they do poorly, because I feel that Boucher believes that these two are very important to his team dynamic. Um, Whether I think they should be dropped or not, if they do have poor series, I don't think after one series. I think if they perform poorly now, they perform poorly against New Zealand, if that still happens, then we can maybe start thinking about, oh, should we? Because then it would be maybe a couple of series on the bounce that we're talking about. Though Temba Bavuma's coming off a good series against Pakistan, so that's another thing. Lorenzo saying Khalid Rassie's name should definitely not be there. I just said that now. Temba and Quinton de Kock should be today's topic. Rassie is Mr. Dependable. So Quinton de Kock is someone that we can speak about, because he is not being in form. No matter what format we're talking about, he's really struggled to play for South Africa. Um, this is a discussion we have to start having. Is at what point do you drop players, Aditya?
Well, I did raise the Quintin the Cock issue a few months ago. And if you really want to know my views, check out that podcast, Lorenzo. Um, Look, I think I don't know what's wrong, what's going wrong with Quintin de Kock, uh, because I I personally felt like if there was ever going to be a successor to Adam Gilchrist, it was going to be Quintin de Kock. Certainly in the first 3 or 4 years of his Test career, um, but you know, I don't know what's derailed it, whether it's too much cricket or not being mentally fresh, or or opponents working him out, because that tends to happen. And look, here's the thing with modern day cricket is that there are so many analysts around. There are so many different ways to exploit a loophole in your game that a lot of times players who've done well initially in their careers tend to then um, sort of have their progress derailed over a period of time. And players do get found out. Um, with Quinton de Kock, I don't know. With Quinton de Kock, I don't know what's going wrong for him uh, in in all three formats of the game, really, because the same consistency that he had shown at the beginning of his career has been missing. Uh, but I hope it works out for him. Look, he did in Test cricket, he did do well in the West Indies. There's no doubt. And in T20s, he did do well in Sri Lanka, and he finished games as well. But the consistency that we've been used to, certainly from at the beginning of his career, is somewhat missing. And I don't know. Hopefully, he rediscovers his mojo.
Mhm. And currently, when we're talking about Temba, Temba is currently in form, so we can't be really criticizing him at the moment when it comes to Test cricket. How come when when there's mention of quotas, there's no mention of quotas? Sorry, okay, let me redo that. How come when we win, there's no mention of quotas or transformation, but when we lose, the players of color gets the blame? We see it in rugby as well. Spitting facts. Now, Temba Bavuma, for example, is a good example. He's been criticized and criticized and criticized consistently every single stream that we do. When he performs well, nobody says anything. But when he performs badly, the whole world ends. When a white person performs poorly, a white player performs poorly, and I know you're not making it about, let's not make it about the race necessarily, but it just so happens to be that way. When a white person performs poorly, there's nothing said about it. But when a player of color performs poorly, then we always calling them quota players, and that's why I don't like that word quota, because it's a it's something that you can use that you can use only for to people of color. There's no word that you can use for white players when they perform poorly. You just say they played badly. So there's no label, a negative label attached to that. So that's the reason why I don't like that. And this is a fair point, because when players of color do perform well, we're not talking about, oh, that quota player did well. You're never going to hear that. It's a negative connotation, and it's a negative connotation that I want to get rid of, and I don't really want to see. Let's criticize players normally and not use negative labels to criticize them. But Aticha, have you noticed this in your analysis of the South African fan base?
Definitely. Look, I think generally it's difficult to. I think the language around um, race in cricket is difficult to navigate, and um, certainly I think with Temba Bavuma, I think we can all agree that there's always scope for improvement, but at the same time, a lot of the criticism that has been directed at him has been disproportionate. You know, if we really look statistically, I'm sure that we can find different facets of different games that were lost because other players didn't do their part as well. But
Mm,
oftentimes Temba is singled out.
mm.
Um, I've stated in the past as well that Temba does need to add to that tally of hundreds
Of course, I
in
agree with you.
in Test cricket. Because I don't know how you can go 6 or 7 years without scoring 100 in Test cricket. That's difficult,
Yeah.
and I say that with respect for some of the other important innings that he's played. Uh, but at the same time, the South African team has not done poorly because Themba Bavuma has not performed. There are plenty of other factors as well.
Mhm.
Like we also need to take into consideration that Kakiso Rabada had not taken a fifer in Test cricket for 3 years. Before the West Indies earlier this year, the last time he'd taken a fifer was against Australia in Port Elizabeth in 2018. But that was very rarely mentioned. So, um, look, I think at some point we need to make a more concerted effort at ensuring that our criticism is directed
Mm.
in the right place, and it definitely shouldn't be getting personal. We don't need to be calling players quota players if they're there at the international level or even at the domestic level for that matter. It's because someone has seen a lot of talent in these individuals.
Mhm.
you
And
know
if you
you
look
can't
at
really you can't control performance.
and if you look at the top batters in South Africa over the last 2 years, Timbers is third on that list with regards to runs scored, and even his average is third or fourth on that list when it comes to averages in the last 2 3 years. So for South Africa, so yeah, let's move on from that now. I don't want to make this a Temba show, please. Dicha, if India lost the SA series, how disappointed will the India public and team be?
Very, because there seems to be a degree of confidence that India will um, that India will win against South Africa this time. And this opportunity is being deemed as India's best to win uh, against South Africa in their own conditions. So I think South Africa and India will be very disappointed because if they lose, uh, because we've come off a historic win against Australia earlier this year, and it was pretty much our third 11 that beat that beat Australia, and we breached the Gabba after 28 years or something like that, or 32 years, I don't know, whatever, but after a long time. And we also dominated against England in England. So if India can win against South Africa in South Africa, I think it'll cap off a fantastically successful year in Test cricket for India. So if India lose, I think the Indian team and public will be very disappointed.
Oops. Khalid, do you think Too much money made Quintin the Cock lackluster in his approach when he playing for the Proteas. He's lackluster these days. Okay, this is just an observation. I wouldn't say necessarily that this is 100% true, so don't take my word for it. We'll have to ask Quintin himself if this is true. But from my interactions with Quintin and what I've seen at practices and my time seeing him in action and the type of personalities he is, seeing him in certain events, how he operates and how he is, Quintin is not the type of person that necessarily likes to be kind of all the like he's not the type of person that tends to be in the limelight often, and he's quite a within himself type of person. He hangs out with his close friends and he does these things that he loves doing. But for Quintin, he's an outgoing type of guy. Likes to be outdoors out in nature. He likes to go fishing. He likes to do those type of things. And I feel that the quarantines and the bubbles and COVID has really affected him mentally. Not so long ago, he needed a mental break. And I feel like us as human beings, we tend to kind of gloss over things like mental well-being and mental illness and mental strength and those type of things, because mental health is a serious topic and issue. It can really affect your performance. It can affect your behavior. It can affect a lot of things in your life, how you interact with other people. um, Sometimes something can be eating you up inside and you tend to either lash out or you tend to treat others in a way that you don't even know you're treating them because of what you're going through mentally. And we all face it. Me and a teacher, all of you guys will face that. Times when you just don't know why you're not feeling well, and you don't even know. You think you're doing something in good light and doing something well, and you're doing the right thing, but you end up not, because you can't see yourself through someone else's eyes. So sometimes you do something without even knowing that you're doing it, and sometimes it's bad, and you don't feel that way that you're doing that particular thing. So when it comes to Quinny, I think Quinny is the type of person that was the wrong person to put in to expect to put into a bubble. Like if you had to pick players, handpick 5 players to say, look here, you're going to go into quarantine and do a test for us for a science experiment, and we want to see who can thrive in a bubble. I don't think someone like Quinton would be your first name on the team sheet. I don't think you pick Quinton to stay in a biosecure environment if you want your life to depend on it. He's the type of guy that I feel that it really affected, and he went from bubble to bubble to bubble to bubble. I mean, this is his only period now. I feel that he's had some time to just go home and reflect. So I think we're going to see a different Quinton against India. I'm hoping so. I'm crossing my fingers. I don't think money's changed him, because I think he's been earning money since he was a professional. I mean, since he was out of school, he was earning money doing playing cricket. So I don't think money was a big thing for him. I mean, he was a young teenager earning a good contract at the Lions, straight into the Proteas team. He was always earning a good contract and earning good money. Yes, the IPL made him richer, but I don't think it affects who Quinton is. I think Quinton is the type of person, I don't think that phases him. He's not a guy for flashy cars and flashy things. He doesn't come across to that type of person to me personally. But I can stand to be corrected. What's your thoughts, Aditya, if you want to answer that too?
You're right. I just want to add to the bit about mental wellness and being able to perform despite being in bubbles. And somewhere I don't know if this has happened, uh, but I think Quinton needed more guidance in navigating a bubble. For example, Faf du Plessis works closely with Paddy Upton to manage himself through a bubble. He's Paddy Upton is his personal coach, and I think that's helped him because you look at Faf du Plessis' performances over the last year in T20 cricket; they've been phenomenal, and he's been through 15 bubbles. That's no joke. That's huge. Not to mention a concussion. So I don't know if Quentin has reached out to a mental conditioning coach or if someone is working for him, Uh, but I think that would benefit him greatly, and not only him, but I think all players who've spent more time in hotel rooms, in quarantine, uh, through the course of this year, more than any other times of their lives. So yeah, I feel like that's something that someone should recommend to Quinton, to be honest, because if
Mm.
there's a person who needs it, it's probably him.
Lorenzo Bailey asking who is next in line to coach the Proteas and does he necessarily have to be Black African? I don't think he necessarily has to be Black African. I don't necessarily think he needs to be South African. I just think that there needs to be someone that has a clear plan, that has an understanding and has a clear plan of how South African cricket needs to be developed. Me personally, I want Enoch back. I've spoken to Enoch and I've had many conversations with him to try to understand his philosophy. And I know that the man understands, he has a plan for South African cricket and a way to take it forward. I want somebody that comes in and restructures South African cricket from the that bridge from domestic cricket straight into the national side. How are we going to improve? What brand of cricket we're going to play for the next 10 years? Put a plan in place that has a structure, that has anybody knows their roles, etc. And I feel that Enoch was hard done by. I think that Enoch was the right man to take over South Africa at that time when he took over South Africa when they went to India. Yes, it was a difficult tour in India. And yes, it was always going to be with the rank turners that India put in front of us. And yes, it was always going to be with the transition that we were having with when India had their best 11 available to them. There wasn't much turnover for them with regards to new talent coming into that side. And it was a very difficult task for Enoch to expect him to perform in a series as an interim when he didn't have control over everything. I feel he needs to be a head coach where he has control over who comes in, who's his coaches, who's the future. Enoch should be the next person that takes over from Boucher, in my opinion. Either he wants it or not, that's going to be obviously up to Enoch himself. Who would be your choice, Aditya, for next coach?
Look, I think Enoch is a great option. Uh, Sometimes it's I don't know if this would apply to South African cricket, but speaking from an Indian perspective, I think it helped us greatly to have John Wright as coach at at one point in the early 2000s, and it was great to have Gary Kirsten to have as our coach as well. And I think their perspectives certainly helped develop Indian cricket in ways that we're seeing now. Again, Barry Upton was a huge name in Indian cricket. He worked with Gary Kirsten. They got Mike Horn on board, the explorer, to motivate the team before the 2011 World Cup. John Wright was great as well. And I don't know. Sometimes I feel like having someone who's not from the system can benefit the team. Um, Not always, because we've also seen that with Greg Chappell. But I think there are times when if you get the right individual, having an outsider can benefit the team.
It
But in
can,
saying that,
it can,
yeah,
but I feel that it's like similarly to I compare the Proteas to Man United. No, no, wait, this just bear with me over here. Manchester United has a certain rich culture and understanding of a very rich history, a rich culture, a rich style of play with certain fans that demand certain type of football being played in a certain culture at the club, right? For many, many centuries, that's been the case, or many, many years, that's been the case. South Africa similarly has a very rich culture, very rich history that someone in South Africa needs to understand. And I feel having a South African person that understands that and has seen it at its worst will be able to take us forward. I don't think an outsider would understand what South Africa is about, what our community is about, what the people are about, and rally them all together. I feel if you're going to take an Australian guy or someone from England, send them to Guguletu and Kailicha and to Hanover Park and to Manenberg. Let them go into the areas and see what we are actually working with in this country to find talent. So that's why I would like a local coach, but even international coach can come in and maybe change just the philosophy of the protest. That might be a good thing, but he's going to have to work with the rules that South Africa has. Um, as the popularity of cricket in SA declined in the past few years, um, I think the popularity of cricket in general has declined over the last few years. And I'll tell you why I say so. I feel that with regards to the younger generation of people, of kids that are being exposed to different things, their concentration spans when it comes to certain things is not as massive as it used to be. I've seen kids say, "Oh no, this movie's 2 hours long. I don't want to watch it." And I'm sitting there, I'm like, "Bro, when I was your age, I went to a marathon of Lord of the Rings where I watched all three movies back to back at the cinema. That's 9 hours or 9 to 10 hours of film in a row. We stood outside a bookstore the night before, waiting for the next Harry Potter book to drop. Like I think the concentration spans of of the younger generation is just not there anymore. We don't see as many people watching Test cricket. India is an exception to the rule, but in other countries even we don't see a packed stadium for Test matches, but you see it for T20s. You see it for even T20s. For some people are too long. They have T10s now to try and find a way. You can really necessarily, you can just see by what sort of tournaments ICC and people around are trying to create to get people into cricket more. Because just by that, by T10s and all these other rubbish that are around, you can see that there's a lack of necessity for this sport within our younger community. I feel our younger guys are not necessarily up for this type of sport that takes so long. And it baffles me because even American football is something that takes up to 3 to 4 hours, maybe sometimes. It's like a T20 game length. Even the longest sport, baseball, can take days, but yet America has found a way to still make baseball massive. Yes, because the country, you have our country of however 100, half a billion people in the country. You're obviously going to be able to market your own brand a lot easier. If you're successful in your region, you can be successful. South Africa, for example, our market is so small when it comes to cricket. We only have 60 million people in South Africa. So you've got rugby where we've been successful and we've won 3 World Cups, which is massive. To win 3 Rugby World Cups is a massive, massive achievement. And then you've got South Africa's cricket team. You're asking the people to waste to watch a sport for 8 hours or 4 hours, but you're not winning your games or you're not number one in the world. It's a lot you're asking from your fan base. So I do think that the popularity has declined, and that's what we are here for. Cricket Fanatics is trying to change that. We're trying to find the love for cricket again, because if we can help people find love with other teams, not only the Proteas team. These other teams, club cricket, there's university cricket, there's under 19 cricket. There's so much more cricket to be played in this country and that is around. If we can get people hyped about that cricket, then they'll be hyped about the Proteas because they want to see the heroes that they've seen at the lower levels and they'll want to follow them all the way to the top. So that's why we want to bring more personalities to you guys, because then you guys will become fans and want to wait for them to play for the Proteas. You'll watch the Proteas because of the personalities, not only because of winning and because of the sport. I think if we can get that right on Cricket Fanatics Mag, we'll be promoting cricket in South Africa like we aim to do. Thoughts, Aditya?
It's hard to comment. Like sitting in India, it's hard to comment on what the view of cricket is on the ground in South Africa. But I can understand if there's been a decline in the popularity for a couple of reasons. One is that a lot of superstars have retired. A lot of players from that golden generation, Herschel Gibbs, Hashim Amla, Graham Smith, Faf du Plessis, AB de Villiers, Dale Steyn, Makaya Antini, Warren Philander, these guys are no longer playing, and these were possibly your most marketable sort of cricketers. These were household names in South African cricket. So with them retiring, um, it's it's going to take time for the public to warm to these players, the new players in the team now. That's one. Secondly, I think with the media, South Africa and Cricket South Africa's perception. I think it's there's so much negativity around it, and there's so much
Mm.
controversy and drama surrounding the administration of cricket in the country that I think it's put people off. Um, I don't think generally we talk about that much administrative drama with respect to any of the other countries playing cricket. We're generally talking about their games. So that's one thing. And I don't know if cricket is well marketed in South Africa. You know, Marketing is important. Ultimately, all the money coming in is going to come from a broadcaster. So, in order to get lucrative deals from broadcasters, they've got to the team obviously has to perform well, but
Mm.
the team has to perform well, but then that also has to be marketed to the public. The public should know that the
Yeah.
team has performed well, irrespective of whether you watch the games or not.
Yeah, and it doesn't
And
help when your biggest broadcaster in the country doesn't promote cricket as much
exactly,
and pulls out of cricket deals from. I mean, today we got a press release that they pulled out of Western Province. They're not investor in Western Province cricket anymore after years of investing in them. So they divested from them. So it's not
that
going to help
is
when things like that
huge.
happen. Yeah.
And look, I think ultimately, if you look at you look at the numbers in Indian cricket, I think they're expecting like a 4 or 5 billion dollar deal for the IPL for the next 5 years. So that money is going into Indian cricket. It's developing players, and those players are being marketed, and then they're coming in and performing. So it's all a cycle. And at the moment, I feel like in South African cricket, the cycle has been disrupted a fair bit because if there's no money being poured into South African cricket, they can't really develop players. If they don't develop players, players are not going to perform. And if players are not going to perform and they lose, there isn't going to be a lot of marketing to do. And if there's no marketing to do, public's not going to know who the players are and what they're doing at cricket field. So all of these things are interconnected, and hopefully something's got to give.
You know what we have to do? We have to do a deep dive, actually, Aditya, and see why these youngsters are still playing cricket. The youngsters like Devat Brevis, etc. And we need to tap into their minds and see how we can market it more to this younger generation because we are all about promoting South African cricket. And we're going to get it right, guys. We're going to put it out in the universe. We're going to get it right. We want to make cricket popular again in this country. We want to get people in love with this game again, even if it's just to watch, even if we can get people to come and watch more games or whatever the case may be and watch our streams and fall in love with the game again. Hopefully we can do that. I feel that cricket is a type of game that it's for the supporter. It's a day out with the family. It's a day where you have to strategize and think about different variations and things like that. And it's very, very strategic. And I feel that if we can get that right and explain that to people and put it in front of more people, we'll get it right. But guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks you so much for all the comments. I really appreciate it. Myself and Aditya both. I thank all of you too for coming over here and supporting us 100%. We will be back again next week with another Q&A show, hopefully. But stay tuned, guys. We won't have a great weekend. We won't have a show tomorrow, but we'll have our Sunday podcast. Have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy every single moment of it. And we'll see you guys again very, very soon. Take care, guys.